from Corey. Here we go. All right, we're going to be talking today, ironically enough, about setting goals that matter. What did I do that this thing, is it out of battery or something? Next. Maybe I pressed the battery thing. I gotta get this thing working. Hang on. There it is. Aha! Fiddle with the battery. What successful agents do every day? Here's the big secret. There's no secret. It's just a matter of doing things every single day. Grow your business, lead generate, make seller listing presentations and get listings, buyer presentations and get listings, preview your real estate, run your business, seller listings, market them, show buyer houses, negotiate contracts, transaction management to closing, vendor management, set goals, compliance, risk management, attending training, get coaching, and manage your money. This is the life of a real estate agent, right? We've talked about it in and out and in and out. Here's what we're going to focus on. Lead generate for buyers and sellers, set goals, and attend training. So last time I made the offer, does anybody have a client they want to call? Yes, no? Yes, no? Okay. Well, we won't do that. Attend training and get coaching. Envision your life. Who are we and where we want to go, determine what we do and what we accomplish. Why do you think it's important to set goals?
Keep you focused.
Keep you focused? Okay. What'll happen if you don't? What do you think?
You will be all over.
Yeah.
You're not going to be focusing on something to achieve.
Yeah. Focus on something to achieve. So what do you mean by that exactly?
I mean, if when you set a goal, you will set a plan and you will know what you're supposed to do. Time frame on when you achieve this goal. But if you keep everything all over, you're not gonna be focused on one thing. You'll be probably focused on many things, and then you're not gonna achieve anything.
Yeah, and then you're, instead of working towards your goal or your goals, what happens every day is going to run your life and your business, right? And it won't necessarily take you to the place that you want to go. And I think that's one of the keys, right? So we've been talking and we've been discussing kind of what all of this means and where we should be going. But let's talk a little bit about setting goals. And then I'm going to kind of ask you to do that, because what have we talked about so far in our Ignite classes, your pathway to 6 figures? What have we talked about so far? Generally been confined to what?
Goals wise?
No, just our topics in general.
Leads.
Yeah, so far it's been leads, scripts, leads, kind of all of that. So what do you think I might be asking you to do today? It's not like last time where I was asking for somebody to make phone calls or anything like that, but we're talking about goals, and then we've been talking about leads and scripts and that kind of thing. What do you think I might be asking you to do today?
Setting goals?
Yeah. Yep. So this is kind of a part of what we were just discussing. Thinking, time and effort, where are your actions going? Where do you want your actions to go? We talked a little bit about it with kind of going through the activity in the team meeting today. It lines up really well with this. Visit that often, understand your motivation, go through the process, and make sure that you think, act to get your outcome to achieve, right? So if you think small, that's the idea of what this is saying. If you think small, where do your outcomes end up? Small. I'm going to sell 10 houses this year. Is that big or small?
Average.
Yeah. Right?
Mhm.
So if it's average, I'm saying small, right? I'm gonna sell how many houses this year? So we want you to think big, right? How many have you done before? How many do you think you can achieve? And the idea is to probably bump it up. Ultimately, not because you should or you have to, or I don't want you to do anything you don't want to do, but think about what your outcome is and what your goal is behind that action. One of the things, I'm not passionate about real estate. It's not a thing for me. I could care less. I like helping people. I like other people seeing results that they want in their lives, similar to you, but different. I like to empower people to go where they want to go. That's what I enjoy doing. And I think that kind of stems from teaching and going through that part of my life before. Never knew I liked it. Probably pretty selfish, younger kid and all of that, but going through that process and being part of that process and getting into sales and real estate, of course, I wanted for myself, and then I found that I wanted more for others. And then myself will come. I keep focusing on what others have and what others want. That makes all the difference to me. So how big is your box? The what, how, and who. Many new agents limit themselves right away. Maybe they don't call their sphere and just hope business will come their way. Maybe they're not systematic about their lead gen. They don't have a plan in place. They don't know who they're going to call. They just keep thinking about it and they never actually put it into action, or they only put some into action and they're not consistent about it. Obviously, they're victims of the 80-something% that drop out in the first year or so. Right? It's a pretty big deal. Because a lot of people get into real estate and they don't understand that it's a business. You have to focus on what you want, you have to set your goals, you have to put the plan in place, and you actually have to take action in order for the results to come. So here we go. On page 3, we're going to do an activity. We're going to take some time to put this together, and then we're going to talk about it. We're going to get vulnerable. This is Vegas, ladies and gentlemen. What stays, what happens on the path to 6 figures actually gets posted all over the internet. So I apologize for that, but we're going to go ahead and go through this because it does end up on our YouTube page for training. Maybe we can pause and mute it for this section. I don't know, but we're going to go through the activity. So here's what I want you to do. On the rectangles, write a person or cause you care about, what impact you want to have on them, and how much it would cost. Okay, so I want you to fill in all the boxes. What does it matter? And you can include yourself, but what would you like to do for that person, and what is that cost? I would definitely include yourself for simply your own financial needs, right? So your own, how do I live to empower these other people or causes in my life? Maybe you care for your parents, older parents, or family members, brothers, sisters. Maybe you're focused on your kid's school, paying for vacation, or helping your wife retire, planning for a wedding, something like that. Those things, put these in the boxes. Charities, what do you want to support? Prioritizing your health, time and energy, paying off student loans, whatever it is. Envision your big life, what's important to you. You don't have to restrict yourself to one box. You can do more than one box with yourself, but take some time to do it. I'm going to go ahead and give you probably about 5 minutes to kind of go through this goal, and then we'll get real about it. process.
Or you have to have 5.
Not necessarily.
How old are you?
41.
I'm 68. Those boxes been filled.
Gotcha.
In the MREA book, they asked 2 people their goals, a young person's and an old person like me. Young person's was money. I believe the old person was love. That's
I
the age
remember
I'm
that
at.
story. I remember that story. Yeah. I can't get away from it, the money though. So, but it shifted quite a bit for me, especially in my thought process, right? Ron was saying it a little bit, but the shift is a lot more about, well, how will my wife and I be able to enjoy retirement? But also kind of setting up kids for future. That's my life stage right now, but so it's not money for money's sake, it's for future sake, and providing for family. That's where I'm at. So the first thing you need to understand is how commissions work. Do we understand how commissions work? Ugh. Yes, no? Do we want to go over this and chat about it? A little bit?
Sure.
Many new agents get the check for their first closing and pocket it all. It's an exciting amount of money. And then get trouble going down the line. Let's talk about where the money goes and how much will actually be going to your goal. These numbers are very general and are meant as an example. So say first, if you're on the seller side of the transaction, half of the commission amount goes to the buyer's agent. So depending on what that first example is, you negotiate the commission with your seller. It's split between the two. Now, again, part of that is negotiating. You don't necessarily have to be half and half. That's completely up to you and your client to come to terms on what that looks like. But generally 50%. So once you have your half, about a third goes to the market center to cover your company dollar, franchise royalty, and fees. Depending on what your splits are, the franchise royalty and everything, where you're at in that whole process. After you pay the market center, roughly another third goes back into your business. This covers marketing, operating expenses, signs, your car, your phone, anything else you need to conduct and grow your business. This is kind of one of the keys that we don't think about, right? It's planning for where that money's going and then what you're doing with what you're earning. This is where a lot of agents, and I've seen it time and time again, I still see it with agents that I meet that are having great businesses. Where does that money go, right? Their books. Let's say that they're fairly non-existent in most cases. So they just live day to day and plan it and don't plan it, and then they just put the money out there, right? Well, this is MREA wise where that money should go. Finally, you get your share. You take home includes your taxes, but put away money for taxes religiously. You do not want to have your year's worth of work wiped out because you failed to plan for taxes on your income. So each section you categorize, you keep track of, you know where your money goes, and you talk to your accountant about what you're going to do with it, right? Always, always, always make sure you're planning for taxes ahead of time, right? I mean, you've done transactions, you know, right?
Well, I've been in
understand that.
business since I was 18.
But you did contracting before too, but
So usually after the first year somebody's in business comes the shell shock of number one, taxes
yeah,
and everything you spent,
yeah,
okay? I was in construction. What killed me each year was workman's comp. So no matter what I got with the check, 23% of it had to be set aside for insurances. Then 23% was set aside for Uncle Sam. So that left me with about 50% payroll, da, 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 da,
mhm,
and it shrinks down. And usually a person doesn't figure this out for 2 or 3 years in the business.
Yep.
How to manipulate their money to last.
and it changes depending on if you're hiring people, so when you add
Right.
people to your payroll and things like that,
And
some of your
job,
priorities
and-
and whatnot will change.
Yeah.
So, I was very lucky, being in commissions. I was in commissions when I had a full-time job. So I had a full-time job, commissions. Unfortunately, I was able to learn from my brother. I tell this story, and he hates that I tell this story, but amongst a bunch of other things that happened all at the same time, he also realized that he did not save a realistic amount of money for taxes. So that was a big issue. And it can be, like, depending on what size your business is and when you're making money. There's tons and tons of agents out there, especially in their first few years. They have a successful year and then boom, all of a sudden, taxes, because they've never run a business before and they haven't learned. You go do your taxes, and then you're chasing receipts and you're chasing, what did I spend? How did I spend? Where did this money go? What can I deduct? What can I do? Instead of planning for those things up front and learning that as a business owner, right? So it hurt my brother financially for years after the fact, depending on what your success looks like, right? So I learned quickly that you can send it away, or you put away enough to pay what you need. So
So
Probably gonna, I'm sorry.
be wise, talk to an accountant. Every time you get a commission, take out what your accountant tells you will probably need, and let them pay quarterlies.
Probably just gonna open a new bank account and 30% split, or like 40% of the paycheck will go directly to there. And I'm not gonna touch it until the end of the year.
yep, so I get creative, and again, this is in no way financial advice for you. It's not necessarily something that you want to do or whatever, but I've gotten creative over the few years where it was mostly commission for me. So one year it was the stock market. I played with that in the stock market. So I took the money and, I basically put it in. I'm not super keen on the stock market, but I was reading up a lot on it. And, I put it in there on a safer side, right? Like potential, I could have lost some of it, but probably not all of it, unless everybody was losing all their money. And currently, I am doing that in my HELOC. So I take a certain amount of my money that I'm setting aside for taxes, and it goes into my HELOC. So I'm lessening my burden of interest throughout the year, and then I'll just take it back out and pay my taxes.
What's that below?
It's a home equity line of credit.
Okay.
So the equity on what is currently my rental, I pulled the equity out of it, putting a second mortgage. It's a second mortgage. It's just structured a little bit differently. But because I'm taking the money and putting that in my HELOC, I pay less in interest throughout the year, and then I can just take it out and play. But again, all of this is not necessarily financial advice for you, just things that you can do, and interesting things with money. but you always want to be thinking about that kind of stuff. So let's take a little bit of time to kind of go through it. So our objective in this activity here is to get real about tying your business to your goals. We're going to figure out, based on how much money you'll receive from your transaction, how many transactions you'll need this year to meet your goal. So you took the money, or you took the envisioning your big life. Let's take a second to go ahead and add up what those boxes say, because you were supposed to say, okay, here's what I need, and then add all those up and put it in the center oval. How much money are you needing to live your big life? What does that look like for you? So then we'll do this next activity to figure out what we need to do. So does anybody mind sharing? I mean, can we both share what our number says in the middle?
I put 200K.
Okay, 200K. And yourself?
650.
650, okay, to live your big life.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so what we're going to be doing on this next section is to kind of go through it. First, we're going to estimate the average sales price and average GCI in our market. As you experience selling more homes, you will be able to estimate an average sales point and GCI that fits your transactions more accurately. Would we all be comfortable either just using what's in the example, or we can do our own? What do you think? Because it's not necessarily super accurate at 300,000 in this area.
I'll go whatever way you want.
So that's the average sales price of the house?
That's just an example. It's probably closer to the national number than anything in this area. I would say ours is probably 450, 500,000. Would you agree, Vinny?
I was about 550.
Same thing.
So let's go ahead and go off of 550 if you want. So on page 5 in your book, market the average sales price for a home is go ahead and put 550. I'll do it here quickly. I brought my pen just for this. So 550,000. For our market, the average gross commission income per transaction is. Any idea?
So this is the total commission, or that's?
Yes, the total commission income on 550. So we are seeing currently buyer side transactions. I think the average was around 2.5 or a little bit less than 2.5, but we can use 2.5 if you guys agree that that's okay. Okay, so we're going to use 2.5 commission. So you would simply do 550,000 times 0.025. Which then gives you 13,750. You got it. Bam. So what you're seeing here, this is market center fees off of that particular transaction. So let's, so GCI times the percentage capped at, so let's go ahead and say, it doesn't say it in the top, but let's go ahead and say 30% at 25,000. Are we both okay with that? 30%, excuse me, 30% capped at 25,000. So those disappear at those numbers. Do you understand what we're saying here? So, so yeah, so you would put 25,000 in the box where it says 27. And then 3,000, it stays the same because that's KW franchise fee. So your total here is actually 20, 8. Instead of what you see there. So 25,000 and 3,000, but yeah. All right, so your annual net income goal. So annual net income means how much do you want to make for the year? We're going to estimate. So essentially what we're doing here is we're setting our goal and then we're working backwards through the numbers to figure out how we can make the money in the box that we put in there. So what's the net income goal that you put in there? How much do you want to make this year? How much do you want to make to live your big life? Put that in box 1. So you take that number, your company dollar and royalty cap, and we put it up there as 28. So I'm just going to assume that you've got the same number, 100,000. You said 250 and 650, right? So that should be your first line, 250 and 650.
650, that's gonna be the annual, or that's how much you have? Because I put that one, okay,
Is that
then annual is 100.
for you?
Yeah, because the 650 was just for my goals, that not annually.
Okay.
Know what I meant?
For your goals for what, 5 years or for?
I would say 5 to 7 years.
Okay,
So annually.
so
100.
around 100,000.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Vinny, are you still on the same page?
I'm still
250?
250
Okay, All
a
right.
year.
I love it.
Well, that's cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, 100 just for the first year, of course. It's gonna be like more.
Okay. Hey, goals are not fixed and solid. They can be and should be continually visited and adjusted.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're taking here is the goal, net income for the year, company dollar, and royalty fees. So the fees that you're paying out to the market center, business expenses. How much will you pay out for lead gen, salaries, education? What is your budget? What is your goal there? Because we're going to take all of this. Net income is what you're pocketing. You're paying out 28,000 for company dollar because you're going to be capping and going through all of that. How much are we paying for business expenses? Lead gen, salaries, education. Is that $50,000? Would we agree on that, or how much would you want to put? I mean, we don't have to put the same number if you don't want. We're just going through the activity.
Yeah, let's
22.
let's go 50.
22.
Okay, put in 22. So add A, B, and C to hit the total GCI of what you need. So for you, 250 plus 28 plus 50,000, and for you, it's 100,000 plus 28 plus 22. How much will you need to hit your goals? Because you're taking into account what you're spending, not just what you're earning. So line D should be all of those added up. In this case, it's 180,000. Your average GCI, we listed that up above. For us, that's 13,750 from each transaction. So then you would take D divided by E. So type in line D and divide it by E, and that's how many deals you need. In this case, to hit the 180,000 at 9 GCI, you need 20 deals. Everybody got a number? What is it?
23 to 24.
23 to 24, 17 you said? Okay, so now we know our numbers. So based off of envisioning your life and what you want and what it would cost to get that, you now know how much you have to sell. Basically, right? We simplified it.
It's much easier flipping houses.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because I was making 250, 300,000. Now this is way back
Mhm.
2001 through 6.
Yeah,
I was making 250,000 to 300, flipping 3 houses a year.
yeah.
Yeah, going in. Yeah, so much easier, but you can't do that no more.
Well, there's still some deals out there, but yeah, I think you're right.
Now,
It, on a
I
consistent
would be
basis.
sitting here,
Yep,
because back
On a
then my
consistent
wife
basis.
was the real estate agent, I was the builder.
Yep.
And it just seems like so much work for really little money. Yeah, I've been down the road, okay? I've had quite a few businesses and stuff. So 23 to 20, that means I have to have an appointment minimum a week. Actually, probably 1.5 to 2, because not everybody's gonna fold out like I've been blessed so far they have. So, yeah,
so I love where you're going with that. So this is taking the next step, right? So now we know how many deals do we need? Well, how do we get those deals, right? How do we get those deals? You put this stuff in command, ask Mike, the tech trainer, how to do it. How do we get those deals? We've talked about the 80-20 rule. We've discussed what that looks like. Those are your big rocks, right? What are the biggest things, the most important things that you can do that are going to provide the most results for you? 20% of what you do is going to provide 80% of your results. What does that look like for the real estate business? It's pretty simple. All laid out for you. We've talked about it a whole bunch of times. It's in the MREA. What activity is the 20% for real estate? Especially when you're in a new business and you don't have employees and you don't have anybody else that you're going to be doing it, that is going to be doing it for you. What is that activity for a real estate agent?
Database,
What's that?
database.
Database?
Mhm.
Yes, but what about your database?
I mean, you start in contact with them, send them
Which is called what?
lead generation.
lead
Bam.
generation.
Thank you. Yep. So yeah, it's all around your database. It's around people, but it's staying in contact with people. So you're lead generating. And what that looks like is using your database, talking to your sphere, marketing to them. The activities around that is what's going to be your 20%. All of the other stuff you do, setting up websites and doing other things, if it's not lead generation, it's part of your 80%, especially at this stage in your careers, right? That can shift into hiring for leverage and managing and leading. It does shift depending on what your business looks like. But at this stage in your business, when it's you, lead generating will produce 80% of your results. Because it doesn't just magically appear, right? This is one of my favorite things. And I don't know, I really relate to the quote, but what is the one thing you can do right now that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? I take this and I apply it all the time in my life.
Have my wife sitting here.
There you go. But in order to get your wife here, what's the one thing you can do right now that would make everything else easier and not unnecessary.
Sell houses.
Yeah. Because she's not just gonna come here on her own, right? We've talked about that.
She may.
Ooh, sounds like there's been some conversations. Lead generate for buyers and sellers. All right, so we talked about the goal. We know how many transactions. So on your 411, your goal action sheet, which is on page 7 of your book, and I can get you copies of these bad boys if you want. The 411 is a very simple planning tool. So your 135 or your GPS, you can plan your whole business and figure out exactly what you want to do. But at a very simplistic level, you can take your transactions. How many transactions do we need? 17 and 22 or 3. That's our annual goal. So we put it up there. So go ahead and write it on your 411 in your book. Annual goal, professional. Why is this the old one? That's silly. Anyway, the translation up here, annual goal is right here. Professional, right? So in order to make $100,000 a year and do 17 transactions, or 250 and do 23 transactions, how many do we have to do every month? So break it
One
down.
and some.
Break it down. Yeah, always round up, by the way. Because you can't sell 1.2 houses, so that automatically has to become 2. And then what did you also do there? You then bumped up you made a stretch, your goal. So you take your goal and divide it by 12, and that's what you need to do every month. In order to get to that goal every month, there's going to be certain activities that you have to do. And this is where you get more complicated in terms of what you're specifically willing to do and or want to do in order to run your business and lead generate, right? Some people it's calling expireds or FSBOs. Some people it's reaching out to their sphere and database. Some people it's mailing magazines, or that's part of it. Some people it's open houses. So this is where you need to make that decision and decide how you're going to run your business and what, and then you start planning it out. What are my weekly goals that I'm going to hit and accomplish that will lead to hitting X amount of deals this month? Typically, when I talk about planning, I always say generally you want to plan 3 months ahead, right? The activities you're working on today aren't going to show up for 3 months when you're talking about real estate. Lag time in terms of meeting an appointment, closing that appointment. If you met an appointment today, close the appointment today for a listing. In our market, yeah, it would probably be quicker than 3 months, but generally you want to plan for 3 months. Because you've got staging, listing, prepping the listing, maybe a week or 2, depending on when they want to go live, and then marketing that listing, having the open houses and buyers come through, 2 to 3 weeks, probably not in this market, 2 to 3 days, but then you have closing, generally 30 days. So you're 2 to 3 months out. So that's what you always want to plan. So go ahead and put that in terms of your monthly goals. So then on average, there's activities. So the activities, I always break it down to, so sales units to appointments. So you break it down this way. How many units do I need to sell? In order to sell that many units, how many appointments do I need to go on? So this is exactly where you were going, right? So in order to sell 23 units, you're saying you need 50 or 100 appointments?
Probably 35.
To sell 23?
Yeah.
You need 35 appointments?
Well, usually, so far, it would have been only 23. but I'm betting that eventually I'm gonna get someone who doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll skip it. I mean, so far, everything's been,
100%. I get it.
okay?
Yeah.
But there comes a day,
There will. That's
if
correct.
I'm getting into
Especially if you're,
strangers,
yep, if you're
people I
getting into
don't know.
referrals and things like that. Yeah.
So at least 35.
So there's average industry numbers I can provide for you to plan off of if you prefer. It gets easier once you start knowing your numbers specifically, which is why I would highly recommend tracking, and you can do a lot of it in Command to understand what your percentages are. But going backwards from a closing to an appointment, you're generally going to want to be 75% or greater. So appointment to an actual closing, 75% is probably the number that you should. So 3 out of every 4, you should be setting the closing an appointment. Once you close an appointment, that is, or higher even. I'm sorry, that one's higher. 10% is the fallout rate. So once you're signed with a client, 10% should be your fallout rate. Backing down one, appointment to closing that appointment is 75%. So I apologize. So of the 4 appointments you go on, you should be able to get 3 of them. Once you're in the zone, if you're good at what you do. But it doesn't necessarily stay there for everybody. Some people are good at other things, and maybe the buyer's appointment might not be as good, or a listing appointment might not be as good, depending on what you're doing. But on average, those are the numbers that are out there. And it goes all the way down to contact rates and calling and your actual activity. So what I say when you're planning is you should always work backwards. How many transactions? So how many appointments do I go on? How many appointments do I close? How many calls or touches does it take for me to get an appointment? And then how many calls or touches does it take for me to get 2-way contact? So then you can plan your life down to the last detail. I will. Mine gets insane. Let me. Can't see it as good on my stuff now. Let's see what comes up. See how long this takes to load. I haven't adjusted the total part. This is what my scoreboard looked like. All the numbers are weird and doesn't look right now, but I track calls, contacts, held appointments, signed appointments. I split it into set as well, set to sign, total held. So I was tracking all of that. And then closed buyers and sellers and what that looked like, how it would take, how long it would take, what I needed to do. So I was getting up to, depending on what I was calling, but I tracked everything separately in terms of sources and everything. So this is like my tracking sheet, Scoreboard. I'm actually using it for recruiting as well. Is this my right one? Let's see. Yeah, no. This really is, that's weird. Anyway. So you can see it all here, right? Appointments, how many set appointments, held appointments. So this was. So 155 set appointments, actual held was 133, and signed and sold 44. But those numbers don't look right either, so I must have deleted something at some point. I think I had 180 appointments set for last year. I want to say it was like 140 held. And then signed was like 56. And I was at 48 sold for this year. My activities were tracked from October. And then my results were tracked January to December, because I always did the lead measures and lag measures on that delay. Because I generally, again, October, November, and December activities start showing up in January, February, and March. So then I stopped counting in September, and then those are the results. But that's how I actually tracked it, and you can see over here, all my ratios, like I knew my numbers and what they were. Calls, how many people calls to talk to. So generally I would make 1 call or 4 calls to talk to 1 person, depending on who I was talking to. So I had a bunch of different lead sources, but on average, it was 4 calls and I talked to 1. And then how many people I would get appointments with, and that was generally around 5%. So out of 100 people that I talked to, I'd be setting an appointment 5 times out of those 100 people. But a lot of mine were leads, people I didn't know outside of Sphere. But that's the idea. So you can track it backwards and lay it out and plan it. What are the activities you need to do this week, every day, so that you can reach the goal that you're looking to reach. I don't want to bore you guys too long. I love numbers, you can tell. But that's your 411. How many transactions, how many appointments, to get through and kind of plan all of that out. So I would take the time and go through that on your own. What does that week look like? What does that month look like? And plan it out for every single month. You should review it weekly. And did I hit my goals last week? No. What do my goals look like this week? It's called erase and replace. So if something hits that you didn't plan to do and it takes you away from your activity of lead gen, you're 20%, you need to make sure you put it back, because if you don't, and you keep following those activities, you're now off goal. Does that make sense? That's why you should always look at it weekly, monthly, because if you're, especially when you're newer, because going through those activities, you're going to learn what the differences are for you, because you don't know, you haven't done it yet. So where your success rates and your failures are, and how to improve from those. Constantly remind yourself why those bubbles that we talked about. Margaret brought up a really cool thing with the vision boards. I love the vision board. I did it a couple of years. We did it every year at the retreat. We did a planning retreat every single year. And the first 2 years we did it, and I set it aside and forgot about it. After that, I started posting it up, because the 3rd year I did it, and I'm like, man, this is really similar to my last 2 years. It didn't do what I wanted to do. So I put it right in front of my computer, both home and work. So it was sitting right there so I could see it. Constantly reminding myself, this is what I want. It's important to me. Accountable people achieve results of others only can dream of. Results only can dream of. Accountability, having a partner is pretty important. So you go through, you create your 411, and then you share it with somebody. It's like why the shows, what is it, the Biggest Loser? Why shows like that are popular. Are you guys familiar with that show? Losing weight. You can go way above your goals. Well, not way above your goals, but you can meet your expectations if you're holding yourself accountable, if you're having others help you with that. So don't put this plan together and then not tell anybody about it. Tell somebody that's important to you. recaps, ahas. What do you think?
I think,
Anything we want to talk about or add?
yeah, page 8.
Page 8. Ooh, affirm your big life.
I wonder if any of my kids are saying that. I wouldn't have to be here.
I'm making this call to provide for my parents by paying off their house because they supported and provided for me, and I want to enable them to retire with confidence. I love it.
In all honesty, I put my kids through college. And I totally believe in my kids. I love my kids. Know my kids love me. And that's another one of the reasons that I'm so laid back.
Mm.
Family is so important. It's the most important of anything. So loving your children and guiding them is so important.
And rewarding. So I think the idea, that was somebody's main goal. That was the how they live their big life. So the idea is to affirm that. So you're constantly reminding yourself of your goals and why you're doing the things you're doing, because a lot of times those things are what my business partner used to call the suck, right? Anything that you do in life in terms of working and achieving goals, there's gonna be a portion of it that is not your favorite part, right? I don't like doing this for whatever reason it is. Well, this oftentimes is what gets you from point A to point B. Like making calls, reaching out, talking to people and finding ways to connect. That's what gets you from one place to the next, to live the big life that you want to live and provide what you want to provide your family. And as usual, success habits. A good layout to get 100,000 a year. 10 contacts, 10 conversations, 10 handwritten notes, 10 previews per week. What you can do every day. Go through your scripts, we know it all, and no script practice. Okay, awesome. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
If you have any
Patrick.
questions, let me know.
You're coming
But
tonight, right?
that's how you can.
No.
What?
You will
What?
I
miss
have some plans.
so
Oh.
much fun. This place is crazy. We have such a great Christmas party.
I'm not sure I want to see it get crazy. I don't know.
I'm going to another Christmas party.
Are you? Well, we'll miss you. Share, stop recording.